Namanda, 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 Good morning. Welcome to the 2023 Bca Eitakyo Perpetual Memorial Service. My name is Michael Endo. I am the Executive Assistant to Bca Bishop Reverend Marvin Harada, and I'm honored to serve as your chairman for this morning's service. It is through this Eitakyo Perpetual Memorial Service that we remember with a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation the many, many Bca ministers, members, leaders who have returned to the Pure Land before us. We thank them for paving the way that allows us to today to realize and experience the benefits of following the Shin Buddhist path. Today, through this Bca Eitakyo service, we strive to honor their legacy by doing our part to transmit the Nembutsu and the Shin Buddhist teachings to the next generation and to others who have yet to encounter the teachings. Our service today will be musically oriented. It will feature three wonderful musical offerings. Music is universal. All cultures have music. Music transcends time and space. Classic songs continue to be played and sung by people centuries later. Music resonates with our hearts and minds. It can make us tap our feet or sway our bodies. It can make us dance or shed a tear. The Dharma is also universal. It has a message for all people of all ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds. The Dharma can resonate within our hearts and minds like the beat of a drum. It can bring us great joy or move us to tears. It can uplift us when we are down or settle our minds when we are anxious. The power of the Dharma is like the power of music. So today, we will let both music and the Dharma resonate within us. We will start our service this morning with Kansho, tolling of the temple bell, followed by the most ancient form of music, sutra chanting, with the Sambujo, followed by the Sutra Sambutsuge, led by our Bishop, Reverend Marvin Harada. Next, we'll have the sutra chanting Sambutsuge, led by Bishop Harada.
Naman Davuts Naman Davuts Naman Davuts Naman Davuts Naman Davuts Naman Davuts Naman. とあいみどだついさいじぽらいしょしねつしょじょひとがこくけらくあんのんこぶつしみょぜがししょほつがのひりきしょしょよくじぽせそんちえむげじょりょしそんちがしんぎょけりょしししょくどくちゅがぎょしょじんにんじゅふけなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶがにしくどくびょうどせいさいどんぼだいしおうじょあんらこくSaman, David Saman, David Saman, David Saman, David Saman, David Saman, David Saman, David.
Thank you. We will now have two of today's three musical offerings. The first offering is by Jose Taiko and is entitled Janaika. In 1971, Reverend Hiroshi Abiko was assigned to the San Jose Buddhist Church, Betsuin. As a young minister, he looked for ways to engage young people of the Sangha and community. One of the activities he collaborated in was Taiko. From those early beginnings with practice in the temple gym, San Jose Taiko has become a world-recognized group. They have carried the spirit of Taiko to many people and places, both nationally and internationally. San Jose Taiko has broadened and embellished the historical art form of Taiko into a distinct performance style that now blends traditional rhythms of Japanese drumming with the beat of world rhythms, including African, Brazilian, Filipino, Latin, and jazz. This year, they celebrate their 50th anniversary of continuing to share the joy of Taiko. We thank San Jose Taiko founding directors Roy and PJ Hirabayashi for keeping alive the wish and spirit of Reverend Abiko and for sharing the joy of Taiko with us and the world. This morning's offering, Eijanaika, was composed by P.J. Hirabayashi with lyrics and melody by Yoko Fujimoto. Eijanaika is dedicated to the Issei, the first Japanese immigrants, and celebrates Japanese American history through movement that reflects the Issei's jobs in agriculture, mining, and railroad construction. In recent years, Eijanaika has expanded beyond San Jose Taiko and is included in a growing number of North American Obon Japanese American summer festivals. This specific performance is dedicated to the late Reverend Hiroshi Abiko, who planted the seed for San Jose Taiko and was involved in the naming of the piece. His spirit is remembered with much gratitude, fondness, and mindfulness. And now, Eijanaika. Thank you. I can see Reverend Hiroshi Abiko smiling and looking down on us, saying, "Ijanaika." The next piece will be performed by Jun Kuramoto and Kimo Cornwell of the famed jazz group Hiroshima, and is entitled Heritage, which is a tribute to our Jodo Shinshu heritage and our loved ones. Jun Kuramoto was born in Saitama, Japan, and raised in the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles. As a child, she longed to return to Japan and found comfort in playing an ancient Japanese instrument, the koto. She began learning the koto at the age of 6 under Madame Kazue Kudo, a protege of Japan's most famous kotoist and composer, Michio Miyagi. Jun subsequently received all of the classical degrees of koto through Kudo Sensei and authorized by the Miyagi School of Koto in Japan. Along the way, she has performed with some of the greatest musicians in the classical world, from Japanese masters to Ravi Shankar. But Jun is an American artist. She wanted to somehow integrate this music that is her life with the American culture and music that she loves. Jun met an eccentric artist, musician named Dan, and they began merging Jun's koto music with the diverse musical environment of Los Angeles. This was the beginning of Hiroshima. Jun has since been the driving artistic force of Hiroshima, creating a multicultural music statement while growing into one of the world's greatest kotoists. Kimo Cornwell, Kimo, Hawaiian for James, was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. This amiable keyboard genius of Hawaiian, Chinese, and English ancestry grew up in Kalihi and graduated from Farrington High School. Blessed with the love of music and a palate for plate lunch, Kimo soon became renowned as one of the best keyboard players from the islands. After playing and recording with most of the top groups in Hawaii, Kimo and his wife Debbie moved to Los Angeles to try his hand in the mainland music scene. Immediately discovered by touring groups, Kimo hit the road first with Cheryl Lynn, and then with a succession of artists, including Ronnie Laws, El Giro, Frankie Beverly, and Maze, and off and on with a unique LA band named Hiroshima. Actually, during the period of the mid-'80s, Kimo was being pulled at by Hiroshima, then by Giro, then by Maze, then by Hiroshima, then by Maze, and on and on. Eventually, his head gave way to his heart, and he has become a full-time mainstay with Hiroshima. Working in the capacity of keyboardist, composer, arranger, and producer, he has become a part of the heart and soul of the music. And now I present to you Jun Kuramoto and Kimo Cornwell of Hiroshima and their offering, Heritage. Thank you, June. Thank you, Kimo. Next, we will now have the recitation of the three treasures, first in English, led by Reverend Dennis Shinseki of the Monterey Peninsula Buddhist Temple, Watsonville Buddhist Temple, and the Buddhist Temple of Salinas. For those of you who are joining us from your temples this morning, please refer to your service books. And those of you who are just watching online, hopefully you printed out a copy of the program that came along with the link. And so now, Reverend Shinseki.
The threefold refuge. Difficult is it to receive a human form, now we are living it. Difficult is to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu.
Next, Reverend Yushi Mukojima of the Mountain View Buddhist Temple will lead us in the Sankiemon, or the Japanese version of the three treasures.
Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu.
Namanda Sankiemon.
Next, Reverend Yushi Mukojima of the Mountain View Buddhist Temple will lead us in the Sankiemon, or the Japanese version of the three treasures.
さらにいずれの章に向かってかこの身をとせん。大衆もろともに指針に参謀に消えし立てまつるべし。自ら仏に消えし立てまつる。まさに願わくば主情とともに大道を体現して無常ようこさん。自ら法に消えし立てまつる。まさに願わくば主情とともに深く共造に入れて知恵生みのことぐならん。自らそうに消えし立てまつる。まさに願わくば主情とともに大衆を通りして一切無下ならん。無常人人微妙の方は百千万号にも愛おうことがたし、我今検問し受事することを得たり、願わくば如来の真実義を下し立てまつらん。ナマンダーブツナマンダーブツナマンダーブツナマンダーブツナマンダーブツナマンダー。
I now have the honor of introducing our guest speaker for this morning's Eitakyo service. Born and raised in Hawaii, Reverend Gerald Sakamoto graduated from Iolani, an all-boys Episcopal school, and the University of Hawaii. He received his Tokudo ordination in 1973 and Kyoshi certification in 1974. In 1974, Reverend Sakamoto was assigned to the Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii's Hawaii Betsuin in Honolulu. He then transferred to the BCA after 2 years in 1976, at which time he was assigned to the Buddhist Church of Oakland. Following his assignment at Oakland, he also served at the White River Buddhist Temple. Currently, Sensei is serving as Rinban of the San Jose Buddhist Church, Betsuin. Reverend Sakamoto is married to Kathleen Seki. They have 3 daughters, Gwen, Eleanor, and Sarah, and he is the grandfather of Dallas and Kaya. Reverend Sakamoto has had a long interest in technology and its application in temple work and community. He has served on various community organizations and is a member of the American Leadership Forum. He has served on various committees and positions in the BCA, including serving as Gicho or chairman of the Ministers Association. So without further ado, I present to you my good friend, Reverend Gerald Sakamoto. Onegai shimasu.
If you please join in Gassho. This is the second letter from the Matto Sho. The depth of the Buddha's benevolence is such that even with birth in the realm of indolence, the borderland, the castle of doubt, or the palace of womb, this brought about only through the compassion revealed in Amida's 19th and 20th vows, we meet with a happiness that surpasses understanding. Thus, the depth of the Buddha's benevolence is without bound. But how much more should we realize the benevolence of the Buddha with birth in the true and real land and attainment of enlightenment of the supreme nirvana? This is not a matter which Sho Shimbo or I have decided ourselves, not in any way at all. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Hello. I want to thank all of you for joining us in this Eitakyo service. And thank you to the many individuals behind the scenes. This technology is great. It kind of simplifies things as we view it, participate in it. But to manage all of that in the background is quite a challenge. One of the things that we have to contend with here in San Jose is that we are in the flight path of the San Jose International Airport. So you may hear in the background, fortunately during the performances earlier, they had my device muted, and so you weren't able to hear on the flights overhead. During this portion of it, you may hear that, and that might be a good thing. But technology, anyway, is a wonderful device that allows us to communicate over such distances and in ways that previously we would not be able to think about. Today, as we participate in this Eitakyo Muehoyo, we are mindful of the many lives that have made our life possible. We are especially mindful of those individuals who have been and continue to be a part of our lives. However we might think of these individuals who have passed away, that we think of them should remind us or acknowledge this continued relationship that we share with them. It's nothing magical or mystical about that relationship. Sometimes we kind of need to have something special about it to think about and remind us of how important that relationship might be. But really it's not that so remarkable. It's only remarkable in that it continues to be a part of our lives, our everyday life. We drink water. It's kind of a common thing, and as we lose our ability to access water, we might begin to start thinking about how precious that water is. But as we enjoy that water, it may not seem so remarkable, but yet that simple water quenching our thirst, when we think about it, it is truly remarkable. I read an article recently that talked about how water may have been brought to this planet by asteroids, and they're finding these asteroids out there that are primarily composed of H2O. And that one of the ideas now is that these asteroids colliding with our planet brought water to this planet and brought along with that the components necessary to produce life. These simple things that we kind of enjoy really sustain our lives, make our lives possible. And we don't really think of those things maybe on a day-to-day life, in our day-to-day lives. When we consider at services such as today, we are especially mindful of this relationship that we share with those lives that have been a part of our lives. I think back to the bishops that I've had the good fortune of serving under, who have now passed away. Not just the bishops, of course, but the many teachers, many friends who have been influenced in the way that I see and engage the world. In Buddhism, we are mindful of how everything is impermanent. When we do Oshoko, many different meanings kind of associated with Oshoko, but I like to think of that Oshoko as being a reminder, acknowledgement of the impermanence of things. The incense doesn't just disappear, but it changes from its recognizable form into ash and heat and smoke. It doesn't just disappear. And the relationship that we share with these individuals, like the incense that is burning, continues to change. It doesn't just disappear. But we have to kind of be mindful of that. And when we are mindful of that, the influences that continue to be a part of our lives, continue to shape the way that I see and engage the world, I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to share life with them. Again, however we might think about those individuals, whether they're off in the distance in 10 billion Buddha lands to the west, or whether they're hovering above us, watching over us, thinking about us, however we might imagine or think about their lives, that we think about them reaffirms this continued relationship that we share with them. When I arrived here in the United States, from Hawaii to the BCA, Reverend Tsuji was bishop at that time. And I was wandering around San Francisco, and many friends, the late Reverend Hamada, Reverend J. Shinseki were there, and they took care of me while I was kind of trying to find my place again, find a footing again. And they let me stay at their place for a while. And then I kind of wandered around, and eventually Reverend Tsuji heard about my my presence in the Bay Area, and he called me in. He says, "What are you planning to do?" So, I don't know. I think maybe I'll go to Davis and study agriculture, because I wanted to go help a friend in Australia who had several thousand acres of sorghum, and that he needed some help in Australia. And so I was thinking, maybe go study agriculture. And Tsuji Sensei said, okay. But while you're thinking about that, before you decide to go to Davis, why don't you go to Oakland? So, yeah, maybe, okay. So Tsuji Sensei made arrangements for me to be assigned to the Oakland Buddhist Temple, where I met the Endo family and all of the Endo family. And because of that relationship with Tsuji Sensei, all of those experiences are now a part of my life. And the friendship that Endo Sensei mentioned earlier is from that time and has continued through the years. Tsuji Sensei thought about what I needed to do. He made arrangements for me to be assigned to the Oakland Buddhist Temple. And at the Oakland Buddhist Temple, of course, Taniguchi Sensei and Mrs. Taniguchi were there. And they also helped to cultivate who I am. These relationships, again, are not simply things of the past. They're not simply memories of the past. When we think of them, they influence how we feel in the present, how we think about the world, and how we engage the world in the present. When I first began to think about becoming a minister, or maybe this was even before I thought about becoming a minister. Growing up in Hawaii, the first bishop that I became familiar with was Reverend Kimo Imamura. And Imamura Sensei had been asked to come to serve the Hawaii Kyodan as its bishop. From his assignment to the Berkeley Buddhist Temple. And one of the things that Imamura Sensei did in Berkeley was to lay the foundations of the Institute of Buddhist Studies. And when he came to Hawaii, one of the things that he did was to begin to establish the foundation for the Buddhist Study Center. And his son and I used to hang out. His son, Mike Imamura, that's what we called him at that time. Mike Imamura was teaching math at Kailua Honganji, riding a motorcycle and getting, so eventually Imamura Sensei had his son, Mike, who was ordained and served as the director of the Buddhist Study Center, and began to lay the foundation for the Buddhist Study Center as it is now. Mike, some of you may know him as Ryo Imamura. And Ryo recently passed away after a bout with cancer. And he was a dear friend of mine. That influence continues to be a part of my life. I think about the experiences that we shared, all of the kolohe kinds of things that we used to get into, the trouble that we used to get into, and all of that is a part of who I am. And I think about that, and I am affected. Not in the past, but in the present. How important, how valuable, how fun, and how hazukashi, the things that we got involved with over the years. That their lives came to an end didn't bring to an end that relationship. I often talk about, well, not often, but I often think about Imamura Sensei and his family. The other day when we were listening to the BCA, and we'll hear a gata by the BCA Music Committee. Hiro and Rei Imamura have had a part in that, in the music. And their parents were Kamo and Jane Imamura. And when I was attending still high school, Imamura Sensei, or Jane Imamura, was the choir director there at the Honolulu Betsing, sang choir with them under her instructions. Later on, Reverend Iwai became the choir director who served at the Salinas Buddhist Temple. All of these relationships are not simply things of the past, but they influence and continue to be a part of my life, influencing the way that I see the world, that I engage the world. Buddhism is really, in my mind, and it has to be simple, otherwise I can't hold it in my head. Buddhism begins with a question of, how do we resolve the difficulties that we cause and experience? How do we resolve those difficulties? How do we address those difficulties and resolve them? And those difficulties can be anything. It can be from what is taking place in Europe, between Ukraine and Russia, and how it is continuing to expand. It can be difficulties that we encounter through the degradation of our environment. It could be difficulties that occur between friends, difficulties that occur between family members. whatever the difficulties we might experience, Buddhism suggests that these difficulties can be resolved to the understanding that we have a tendency to see the world through our preferences, what I want, what I like, what I need. And that if we can begin to cultivate the mind that simply sees things as they are, we can begin to soften the boundaries that separate, that cause opportunities for difficulties to arise. And that there is a resolution to these difficulties. And that the resolution to these difficulties can be cultivated. This is the Four Noble Truths. A lot of time we talk about Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. But really the Four Noble Truths is that Four Noble Truths. We experience difficulties, the resolution of difficulties is to the cultivation of the mind that sees things as they are. That we don't have to remain like that. We can experience enlightenment, nirvana. And in order to do that, we have the Eightfold Path that we can practice. But for us in Jodo Shinshu, the practice of the Eightfold Path, we realize that that's not a way for me to approach enlightenment. I'm inconsistent. And I look back at my past and I see all of the inconsistencies. I think it was Reverend Matsumoto, and I hope all of you get a chance to hear the seminar, a symposium that was presented by IBS not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before. And Matsumoto Sensei, one of the things that I think it was Matsumoto Sensei, I have to go back and look, but he said, as we look back, the path that brought us here becomes clearer. Looking forward or being present, now it may not be very clear, but when you look in the past, look to the past, we can see all of these different things that occurred that brought us to this moment. When I look at my past, I see a scorched earth. I see all kinds of inconsistencies, all kinds of problems. I see all of the difficulties that I have been the result of, or the cause of. And there's much to be embarrassed about, much to be, to realize how that Eightfold Path, for me to perfect, to become a Buddha through the practice of these Eightfold Path, simply not possible. Trying to follow the Eightfold Path and failing reminds me of how incapable I am of resolving the difficulties that we cause and experience. But I am also reassured through the vow of Amida Buddha that provides for the enlightenment of all beings, that I too am included in that vow. There are many passages that I could have read from, but this second letter of the Mattosho, and it's interesting for me that this passage that I read is kind of like a postscript. There's a letter itself, and then there's a finishing of that letter, and then there's this which follows that letter. I could have read things like from the preface of the Kyogyo Shinsho. In their selfless love, these incarnated ones, Devadatta, Ajatasattu, Vaidehi, all aspire to save the multitudes of beings from pain and affliction, and in his compassion, Shakyamuni, the great hero, sought indeed to bless those committing the five grave offenses, those slandering the Dharma and those lacking the seed of Buddhahood. That even these individuals, Vaidehi, Ajatasattu, Devadatta, the characters of the tragedy of Rajagriha, they too already bodhisattvas. Shinran thought of them as bodhisattvas. But I'm not that bodhisattva. I am not that person who has this great compassion, great humility, great anything. I look back again at that path. It's like scorched earth. But I'm truly grateful that I am able to also enjoy the assurance of Amida Buddha. When I went to Imamura Sensei so many years ago, and I had decided at that point to enter the ministry, that I would go to Japan. And in those days, I took the short path, and it was like 8 months that I was there in Japan. But before I left, I asked Imamura Sensei if he would consider giving me a homyo. And he said, okay. So he wrote a homyo and sent that to Japan. At the end of my stay in Japan, having completed Tokudo, I received the homyo that Imamura Sensei had sent to Honganji. And when I was presented with that homyo, the homyo read, Shaku, Kango. And when I heard that Kango, I thought, what is Kango? Sounds like something, I was expecting something grander, something more wonderful, but it's Kango. I thought, what does Kango mean? It wasn't again until many years later that I began to really appreciate this name that Imamura Sensei gave me. Go is Satori. It is a variant of my name, Satoshi, which my parents gave to me. And Kan is the Kan of Kamo, Imamura. The Kan of Kandyo, Imamura, his son. And how much truly I appreciate now this name that I received so many years ago. The influences of the lives that we remember continue to be a part of our lives and can deepen as our own lives continue to change, continue to unfold. As we experience things, those memories are not simply memories of the past, but are influences on our lives that can continue to have meaning and importance. Today, as we participate in this Eitakyo Muehoyo, as we remember these individuals who have been a part of our lives, hopefully they're not just memories of people whose pictures are on a wall somewhere that we remember every once in a while in some way, but that we realize how much those lives continue to be a part of our lives. And realizing that, how grateful we are to having had the opportunity to share life with them. I certainly have benefited from the relationships that I've shared that have been a part of my life that I'm deeply grateful for. And I mentioned just these few individuals. There are a multitude of individuals, and especially family members, who continue to be a part of the influence that shaped my life, my understanding, my appreciation of the Nembutsu. Today, as we participate in this Eitakyo service, we're grateful for having had the opportunity to share life with all of these individuals. I'd like to read again, and I hope you understand why this particular passage for me is so important. It's not that it's wonderful out there, that the assurance of Amida Buddha, that all of these wonderful things are the focus for me, but rather as an individual who truly understands I think, the depth of my limitations. I'm grateful that even I am contained within this. And even if I am unable to benefit directly from the vow of Amida Buddha, there is a 19th and 20th that we can ride along in steerage and still be able to realize enlightenment, nirvana. Let me once again read to you this from the second letter of the Matosho. And for those of you who are following along, this is in Collected Works of Shinran, page 527. So here is that passage again. The depth of the Buddha's benevolence is such that even with birth in the realm of indolence, the borderland, the castle of doubt, or the palace of womb. This brought about only through the compassion revealed in Amida's 19th and 20th vows. We meet with a happiness that surpasses understanding. Thus, the depth of the Buddha's benevolence is without bound. But how much more should we realize the benevolence of the Buddha with birth into the true and real land and attainment of enlightenment of the supreme nirvana? This is not a matter which Shoshimbo or I have decided ourselves, not in any way at all. If you would please join in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sakamoto Sensei, for your message this morning. And I would like to extend a special thank you to Bishop Tsuji for tracking you down and assigning you to the Buddhist Church of Oakland back in 1976. I clearly remember when you were assigned to my temple and you're arriving with your long hair and your goatee at that time. You know, one of the benefits that our temple received, not only with your assignment, but your mother, I remember, every year for a number of years, for our major services, she would send boxes and boxes of flowers, the ginger, the torch flowers, the anthuriums, the orchids, so that we can adorn our altar, our onaiji, beautifully with flowers of Hawaii. And so I thank your mother too. But you know, our friendship goes back 47 years, now that I counted. But it's a friendship that I will always and continue to cherish. So thank you, Sensei. Thank you for your message this morning. Arigatou gozaimashita. Our third musical offering this morning will be the song Golden. The music and lyrics were composed by Miharu Okamura and will be performed by Koha in collaboration with Reverend Harry Bridge of the Buddhist Church of Oakland. Koha is the Japanese-American singer-songwriter duo consisting of Miko Shudo of the Oxnard Buddhist Temple and Miharu Okamura of the Buddhist Church of Oakland. Established in 2012 at Long Beach State, Koha's music is influenced by pop, R&B, and many other genres. They often enjoy writing about Jodo Shinshu values and topics in their songs. Koha released their self-produced debut single, Hold Me Tight, in 2022, and is looking forward to releasing more music in 2023. This morning, Koha is happy to collaborate with Reverend Harry Bridge, resident minister of the Buddhist Church of Oakland. Reverend Bridge began his ministerial career with the BCA in 2008, first serving the Buddhist Church of Lodi and Walnut Grove Buddhist Church. He was then reassigned to the Buddhist Church of Oakland, where he has been serving since 2009. Reverend Bridge is also a member of the teaching faculty of the Institute of Buddhist Studies and is currently serving as the chairman of the BCA Ministers Association. So at this time, please enjoy Golden by Koha and Reverend Bridge.
Now hold up, wait till you feel me stronger. but never lasting. Don't let it slip away, my friend. Take it in, live the moment. Join hands and let the service begin. Show your sense that you are grateful. Feel the song and let it shine. Treat your body like a temple. Feel the nembutsu. Now hold up, wait. Do you feel me, Sangha? Close your eyes. Now press your hands. Gently clear your thoughts and center your mind. We're golden, we're golden, we're golden, we're golden, we're golden. Golden links in a meter's chain. We're golden, we're golden, we're golden, we're golden, we're golden. Golden links in a meter's chain. In a meter's chain. Meter's chain.
Thank you, Koha, and thank you, Reverend Bridge. Next, we will now have a very special musical presentation of the Gatha Ondukusan 2, which is presented by the BCA Music Committee. Thank you very much. Well, this brings us to the conclusion of our Eitakyo service this morning. I wish to take this moment, this opportunity to convey our deepest appreciation to a number of people. First to Reverend Marvin Harada, our BCA Bishop, for officiating this morning's service. To Reverend Gerald Sakamoto for his Dharma message this morning. To all of the ministers of the Coast District and the 2023 BCA National Council Planning Committee, chaired by Perry Yoshida and Linda Kadani, and all of their committee members for their leadership in organizing, hosting, and navigating us through this year's Zoom BCA Ministers Association and National Council meetings, and this morning's Bca Eitakyo Service. Thank you very much. I would like to extend a very special thank you to the technical crew for their behind the scenes work in helping to make today's virtual service, as well as all of the past 2 weeks activities possible. Thank you very much. And lastly, I would like to thank all of today's performers who contributed their musical offerings for today's service, to San Jose Taiko, to Jun Kuramoto and Kimo Cornwell of Hiroshima, and to Koha, Miharu Okamura and Miko Shudo, and to Reverend Harry Bridge for their contributions. And of course to the BCA Music Committee, led by Kemi Nakabayashi, for their rendition of Ondukusan 2. Thank you very much. Through today's Eitakyo service, we have been able to experience yet another way of seeing the benefits of following the Shin Buddhist path. That other way is by hearing, receiving, and realizing how the Nembutsu teaching and the Dharma touches our lives through the joy of music. In closing, as your chairman this morning, I wish to again thank you all for joining us for today's BCA Eitakyo service. I thank you very much. And so I'd like to ask you to please join me in Gassho and Nembutsu as we close this morning's 2023 BCA Eitakyo service. Namandavts, 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 namandavts.